So together we had 12 months of unprecedented success in 2025, and now we're going to make history and break records with the epic midterm victory that we're going to pull off. It just doesn't seem to happen for people that win the presidency. It's an amazing phenomena. You know, you win the presidency, and we sure as hell are having a successful presidency. I will say that. But even if it's a successful presidency, there's been nothing like what we're doing. We had a very good day 2 days ago, too. But even if it's successful, they don't win. I don't know what it is. There's something psychological, like you vote against. You can win by a lot. We won every swing state. We won the popular vote by millions. We won everything. But they say that when you win the presidency, you lose the midterm. You got to win the midterms. Because if we don't win the midterms, it's just going to be, I mean, they'll find a reason to impeach me. I'll get impeached.
Hey crew, it's Adam here. Donald Trump just said something he was never supposed to say out loud. Something that reveals exactly how scared he really is behind that wall of bravado. He was meeting with House Republicans, trying to fire them up for the 2026 midterms, trying to get them motivated to fight.
Breaking news into CNN. Kristi Noem is out as the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. We have a team of reporters on this. Let's start with Kristen Holmes at the White House. Kristen, it was, like 10 minutes ago that you were reporting that her job was in jeopardy, and now it's official.
Yep, President Trump has announced that he has fired the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. This is the first cabinet position that he has fired during his second term. Of course, the only other high-profile ouster we've had like this was when Mike Waltz served as the head of the National Security Council. He was the National Security Advisor. So President Trump just posted this on Truth Social. He said, "I am pleased to announce that the highly respected United States Senator from the great state of Oklahoma, Mark Wayne Mullen, will become the United States Secretary of Homeland Security effective March 31st, 2026. And Boris, just so you know, this is one of the names that we had heard he was floating in these conversations he was having with lawmakers on Capitol Hill. The current Secretary, Kristi Noem, who has served us well and has had numerous and spectacular results, especially on the border, will be moving to be Special Envoy for the Shield of the Americas, our new security initiative in the Western Hemisphere. We are announcing on Saturday in Doral, Florida. I thank Kristi for her service at Homeland." Again, this is a huge deal, Boris. This is the first time he is firing a cabinet member.
And then the word slipped out. He looked at them and said, "If we lose the midterms, they're going to impeach me. I'll be removed." Think about that. The President of the United States is now openly admitting that he could be forced out of office. He is telling his own party that his hold on power depends entirely on them winning. That is not confidence. That is fear.
The president's biggest campaign donor, who was so close that Trump invited him to sleep at the White House, is now calling for him to be impeached and replaced by Vice President J.D. Vance. The man who was handed nearly unfettered access to the federal government is openly musing about forming his own political party. And the same guy, the billionaire backing the U.S. space program, he's now threatening to take his rockets and go home. What at this time yesterday was a one-sided attack on the president's signature spending bill is no longer just a policy disagreement, not even close. It has now become quite personal, as the president says he thinks he knows why.
Well, look, you know, I've always liked Elon, and so I was very surprised. You saw the words he had for me, the words of, and he hasn't said anything about me that's bad. I'd rather have him criticize me than the bill, because the bill is incredible. It's the biggest cut in the history of our country. We've never cut. It's about 1.6 trillion in cuts.
That is a man staring into the constitutional abyss and realizing he might not survive it. This is a massive deal. Trump survived 2 impeachments. He bragged about it. He wore them like badges of honor. But those were different times. Those were first-term impeachments with a Republican Senate protecting him. Now we are in his second term. The political landscape has shifted. The investigations are deeper. The evidence is mounting. And Trump is looking at 2026 not as just another election, but as his own political execution date if things go wrong. He is openly warning that if Democrats take the House, they will impeach him. And if they take the Senate with enough votes, they could actually remove him from office. That is what is keeping him up at night. That is the nightmare scenario he is now desperately trying to prevent. Let's break down what impeachment actually means and why Trump's fear is completely justified. In the American system, the House of Representatives has the sole power to impeach a president. That means bringing formal charges, and they only need a simple majority to do it. Just over half the House can vote to impeach, and boom, the president is impeached. It doesn't matter if the charges are political or legitimate. It doesn't matter if the evidence is overwhelming or thin. A simple majority in the House can impeach a sitting president. That is the constitutional reality. And right now, the House is narrowly controlled by Republicans. That is Trump's shield. That is what protects him from immediate impeachment. But if Democrats flip the House in 2026, that shield disappears. Instantly, overnight. Democrats would control the impeachment mechanism. They would have subpoena power. They would have committee chairs. They would have the ability to investigate every corner of Trump's presidency, every decision he has made, every potential abuse of power. And Trump knows exactly what they would find because he knows what he has done. He knows the classified document situation is still smoldering. He knows the questions about his relationship with Epstein are not going away. He knows the military is frustrated with his leadership. He knows there are witnesses who could testify about his conduct. And he knows that once Democrats have the power to compel testimony, once they can issue subpoenas that actually have to be obeyed, his entire presidency could unravel in public hearings. Now, impeachment is just the first step. Impeachment charges the president. It does not remove him. Removal requires a conviction in the Senate, and that requires a two-thirds majority. That is a much higher bar. That would take 67 senators voting to remove Trump from office. In today's political environment, that seems nearly impossible. But here is what Trump understands that many people miss. Even if the Senate never convicts, even if removal never happens, impeachment itself is devastating. A third impeachment would make Trump the only president in American history to be impeached 3 times. That is not a legacy he wants. That is not something he can spin as a witch hunt forever. That is a permanent stain on his presidency that goes into every history book. And the process of impeachment would consume his entire second term. It would paralyze his agenda. It would make him a lame duck on steroids. Every day would be about defending himself instead of governing. But removal is not impossible. It is unlikely, but it is not impossible. If Democrats take the Senate with a massive majority, if they flip enough seats to get close to that 67 number, and if the evidence against Trump is overwhelming enough to peel off a few Republicans, removal becomes a real constitutional possibility. And Trump knows that. That is why he is warning House Republicans. That is why he is saying, if we lose, I'm gone. He is not being dramatic. He is being realistic about the math and the politics. What would Trump be impeached for if Democrats take the House? That is the million-dollar question, and the answer is not hard to find. Trump is facing multiple investigations right now. There are criminal charges related to classified documents that are still lurking. There are questions about his foreign policy decisions and whether they benefited him personally. There are questions about his pressure on the military and whether he tried to use them for political purposes. There are questions about obstruction of justice and witness tampering. There are questions about his conduct with the Epstein files and what he knew. Any of these could be the basis for impeachment articles. And Democrats have already signaled that they are considering exactly that. They have said publicly that Trump's second-term conduct may justify impeachment. This is not theoretical. This is being discussed in Congress right now. Trump's warning to House Republicans is also a window into his psychology. He normally projects invincibility. He normally acts like nothing can touch him. But here he is, admitting vulnerability. Here he is, telling his own party that he could be removed. That admission is politically significant because it tells us what Trump really thinks about his situation. He is not confident. He is not relaxed. He is worried. He is scared. And when voters hear that, when they understand that Trump himself thinks removal is possible, it changes the way they view the election. It makes the stakes feel real. It makes impeachment feel like a genuine outcome rather than a distant fantasy. This also reveals Trump's motivation going into 2026. He is not just trying to win midterms for policy reasons. He is fighting for his political survival. He is telling House Republicans that if they lose, he loses. If they lose, he gets impeached. If they lose, he might get removed. That is an existential message. That is designed to scare them into fighting harder, raising more money, campaigning more aggressively. But it also reveals that Trump understands the constitutional danger he is in. He is not delusional about this. He sees the path to his removal, and it runs straight through the 2026 midterms. Now let's connect this to everything else we have been talking about. Trump is losing elections. Trump is facing criminal charges. Trump has been caught on tape in ways that damage his credibility. Trump is facing evidence about his past that keeps surfacing. Trump's own military is frustrated with him, and now Trump is facing the threat of impeachment and removal. It is all converging. It is all adding up. The walls are closing in from multiple directions, and Trump knows it. That is why he is panicking. That is why he is warning House Republicans. That is why he is openly talking about impeachment, because he sees the pieces coming together, and he is terrified of the result. The 2026 midterms are not just about policy. They are not just about which party controls Congress. They are about whether Trump stays in power or whether Trump gets impeached and potentially removed. That is the fundamental choice facing voters. And if voters understand that, if they understand that their votes could determine whether Trump finishes his second term or gets forced out through constitutional processes, that changes how they vote. It makes the election about accountability. It makes the election about whether Trump should face consequences for his conduct. It makes the election about the rule of law. Trump's own words are now making that case for Democrats. By admitting that he could be impeached and removed, Trump is validating the idea that impeachment is a real possibility. He is telling voters that if they want accountability, if they want Trump to face consequences, they need to vote Democratic in 2026. He is essentially handing Democrats their closing argument. If you want to impeach Trump, if you want to hold him accountable, if you want to potentially remove him from office, you need to give us the House and the Senate. That message is going to resonate with voters who are tired of Trump's chaos, tired of his scandals, tired of his conduct. But impeachment is not just about partisan revenge. It is about evidence. It is about conduct. Trump has done things in his second term that raise serious constitutional questions. He has allegedly tried to weaponize the military. He has allegedly obstructed justice. He has allegedly tampered with witnesses. He has allegedly violated the Constitution in multiple ways. If Democrats take the House, they will investigate all of it. They will subpoena witnesses. They will hold hearings. They will build an impeachment case based on evidence. And if that evidence is strong enough, if it shows that Trump has committed high crimes and misdemeanors, then impeachment is not just political theater. It is a constitutional duty. Even if the Senate never convicts, even if Trump survives removal, a third impeachment would be historically devastating for him. No president has ever been impeached 3 times. That would be a permanent mark on his legacy. It would define his presidency forever. And Trump knows that. That is why he is so desperate to keep the House. That is why he is warning Republicans that losing means impeachment, because he understands that a third impeachment would be the final nail in his historical coffin. The other thing Trump is worried about is what happens during impeachment proceedings. If Democrats control the House, they will have subpoena power. They can compel testimony from Trump's closest advisors. They can demand documents. They can force witnesses to testify under oath. And those witnesses might reveal things Trump does not want revealed. They might confirm things that have only been rumored. They might provide evidence that strengthens the case for removal. That is a nightmare scenario for Trump. Not just the impeachment vote, but the entire process of discovery and testimony that comes before it. Trump's fear is also revealing about the state of his presidency. He is not governing from a position of strength. He is governing from a position of vulnerability. He is constantly looking over his shoulder, constantly worrying about what comes next, constantly trying to prevent the next investigation or impeachment. That is not how strong presidents operate. That is how presidents who know they are in trouble operate. And voters can sense that. They can sense when a president is weak, when a president is scared, when a president is fighting for survival rather than leading the country. Heading into 2026, this impeachment threat is going to be one of the central issues. Democrats are going to campaign on it. They are going to say, if you want Trump held accountable, vote for us. Republicans are going to have to defend Trump, which is getting harder every day as more evidence emerges. And Trump's own words are going to be used against him. Every time he warns about impeachment, every time he says, they're going to remove me, he is reminding voters that removal is possible. He is making the case for Democrats without even meaning to. The bottom line is this: Trump has revealed his deepest fear. He has admitted that he could be impeached and removed from office. He has admitted that the 2026 midterms are existential for his presidency. He has admitted that if Democrats win, he is in serious constitutional danger. And that admission changes everything. It makes the stakes crystal clear. It tells voters exactly what is on the line. It turns the 2026 election into a referendum on whether Trump finishes his second term or gets forced out through impeachment. Voters now have to decide. Do they want Trump to stay in power? Do they want him to face accountability? Do they want to see if impeachment leads to removal? Those are the questions that will shape the 2026 midterms. And Trump, by his own words, has made sure that every voter understands exactly what is at stake. He has taken the impeachment threat out of the theoretical realm and placed it squarely in the middle of the election. He has made it real. He has made it personal. He has made it about his own survival. And that is why this moment matters. That is why Trump's warning to House Republicans is such a huge story, because it is not just political posturing. It is a confession. It is a man looking at the constitutional trap closing around him and admitting that he might not escape. The 2026 midterms are not just another election. They are the moment when Trump's fate will be decided, and Trump himself has just told us that.